Marci, thanks so much for joining us today. It's great to be with you.
It's great to be with you, David. Thank you for inviting me.
You have spent so much of your life pursuing this idea of happiness, the
Mm.
science of it, the practicality of it. How do you practice happiness? How do you personally define happiness? And how has that understanding perhaps evolved over the years?
Yeah. So my definition of happiness, I wrote a book called Happy for No Reason. And what I mean is happiness is an inner state of peace and well-being that doesn't depend on your circumstances. What I found is that many people pursue happiness for what I call good reason. There's a continuum of happiness. There's unhappiness, which is, an epidemic in society these days. Very only, 1 out of 4 people women in America is on antidepressants. We truly have an epidemic of unhappiness. And then there's happy for bad reason, which is I feel bad. I want to feel better. So I'm going to use something to make me feel better that is not life affirming. So like, overeating or drugs or shopping or addictions, basically. And then there's happy for good reason. I'm going to be happy because I have a good job, because I have money, I have a nice house, I have family, whatever. Nothing wrong with that, except it's very unstable. What I am after is this unconditional happiness, that inner state of peace and well-being that doesn't depend on our circumstances. That is the only place, that is the real happiness that we're all looking for, because that's the one that will last.
Beautiful, beautiful. I know from reading your book that your own story of awakening, mindfulness, consciousness, all of these things kind of started happening early in life. It's a very unique story. If you wouldn't mind kind of giving us the highlights of how that began to unfold for you early in life, that would be amazing.
Yeah, so I was lucky, and I was lucky because I was born depressed. I came out of the womb with existential angst. I had this dark cloud around me from the get-go. And I had great parents. I had a great family. It didn't make sense from the outside, but I just was a seeker. And I now come to think that I probably have carried ancestral trauma. I think a lot of people have an experience of, I don't know why I feel bad, but I just feel this heaviness, and it's maybe not even mine. So it was either ancestral trauma or perhaps past life uh, PTSD. But I came in with that. I was always asking my parents, what's the meaning of life? Tell me about God, and they did their best, but it didn't satisfy me.
Did they have some sort of faith tradition in their own life that they were kind of infusing in the home, or?
Yeah, I grew up Jewish, and they were Jewish. They were into, I would say, more culturally Jewish, although my father was, very observant, and I did like the traditions, and it felt like, oh, there's something deep here that felt resonant with me. But I couldn't find a way out of that existential angst. And then one day in the 8th grade, I asked my mom if I could stay home from school. She said, "Are you sick?" I said, "No, not really, but I just don't feel right. I don't feel like going." And I'd never done that before. So she said, "Okay." And I remember sitting up in my parents' bed, because they had the only bedroom that had a TV in the bedroom. And I turned on the TV to a channel that we didn't get. And on that channel, it was the Phil Donahue show. It was, I think, 1971. And there was this little Indian man in a white robe sitting on a couch and speaking about the meaning of life. And his name was Maharishi Mahesh Yogi. And as soon as he started speaking, I thought, oh my God, this is exactly what I've been looking for. He understands my questions. I'm not alone. There are answers. And At the end of the interview, at the end of the show, I wrote down the name of his book. I didn't understand that there was a technique that went along with it. He is the founder of Transcendental Meditation, but I didn't understand that. And so I wrote down the name of his book, The Science of Being and Art of Living. And I called up every bookstore and every library in San Mateo, California, where I grew up, and nobody had it. And that was the end of that. I put away that little piece of paper in a drawer and forgot about it. And 3 years later, I was walking through downtown San Mateo, and there was a poster in the window of a stationery store, and it had a picture of that same man, and it said, "Life is here to enjoy." And it said, "Come to this lecture." And I went to that lecture, and I learned to meditate that weekend. 16 years old, I learned to meditate, and that was the first thing that changed my life. And I ended up going to a college where everybody meditated. The staff, the faculty, and the students all practiced meditation twice a day. And that really has been an enormous boon in my life. Now, that didn't do it all, but that was the beginning.
Amazing. At what point in your life did you shift where you felt like, okay, I want to utilize my life in service of others? How did that begin to unfold for you?
Well, I'm going to go back to another kind of bizarre, interesting experience that I had when I was around that same age. A friend of mine had taken me to see a motivational speaker named Zig Ziglar, and friends' parents took me. And as I saw Zig Ziglar walking that stage, inspiring people, I knew that's what I was supposed to do. I got a vision that I am going to spend my life traveling around the world, inspiring people to what's possible, how to live what's possible in their life. I remember going home and telling my parents, I'm going to be an inspirational speaker. And that wasn't a profession back then. And my dad was a dentist. They wanted me to be a dental hygienist. And so they weren't very pleased about this pronouncement. But my
Not a
mother teased.
dentist, not a dentist, but a
Not a
hygienist.
dentist, a dental hygienist. Exactly. I was in that era that I was a girl. I was going to be the dental hygienist. But my mom said, "Well, honey, you sure talk enough. You might as well get paid for it." And so I knew from a young age that this was going to be what I was going to do with my life. Of course, it was a weird thing. I graduated from this very unusual university called Maharishi International University. And what was I going to do? I wanted to be legitimate. I've always been very grounded. So I went to graduate school at UCLA so that I would be able to seem normal. And I got an MBA in training and development. And I started my career doing training programs in Fortune 500 companies, teaching communication skills and stress management. And so I was very grounded in that. And I knew, so yes, my career path was a vision that I had as a young girl.
Yeah, yeah. And how did writing begin to come into that for you? Were you writing as a young person in a journal or creative writing, or how did that come about?
David, I hated writing.
Really?
I hated writing. I thought I was a terrible writer. And in my 20s, I had a coach that I worked with, and he told me this formula for manifesting. This was way before The Secret was out or anybody really heard very much about the law of attraction. He said there's 3 steps, and I liked these 3 steps because they rhymed, so it was easy to remember. Intention, attention, no tension. So intention is be clear about what it is you want. And I was clear. I wanted to speak around the world and inspire lots of people. I saw myself in front of big audiences. Attention, put your thoughts, your words, your feelings, and your actions behind it. And no tension, relax, let go. So intention, attention, no tension. I was really good at intention and attention. I worked really hard. I put all my thoughts, words, feelings behind becoming a speaker that would reach the masses.
Mm-hmm.
But I was very bad at the no tension piece. I find that people are usually good at one of those, really good, okay at another one of those 3 steps, and not very good at the other one. And we have to learn which is the one that we're not so good at. So for me, it was the no tension. And one day I was teaching self-esteem seminars. Jack Canfield, who created the Chicken Soup for the Soul books, was my mentor. He taught me his self-esteem trainings, and I was teaching basically based on his trainings. And one day, a dear friend of mine came to me and said, "Marci, you look terrible." Those weren't the words she used. "You look like that." And and she said, "You're really burned out. You're trying really hard, and you're hitting your head against a wall. And I'm going to take you away with me on a 7-day silent meditation retreat." And I looked at her. Her name is Janet Atwood. She's also written a number of books, including The Passion Test. And I said, "Janet, you're crazy. I haven't been silent for more than 2 hours in my life. I'm a speaker. I can't do silence." She said, "No, no, you're going to come with me." And off we went on this 7-day silent meditation retreat. And David, on the 4th day, in the middle of one of my meditations, a light bulb went off, and I saw the words, "Chicken Soup for the Woman's Soul." Now, the only book that was out there was the original Chicken Soup for the Soul book. Nobody had thought of any specialty books. And I knew that that was a download, a gift from the divine. And the only problem with this scenario was I knew that was what I was supposed to do that would bring me to these world stages. The only problem was I still had 3 more days of silence. I couldn't tell anybody about my great epiphany. But as soon as the silence was over, I ran to the closest payphone. It was in 1994. And I called up Jack. I said, "Jack, I've got it. Chicken Soup for the Woman's Soul." He said, "Oh my God, I can't believe nobody's thought of it." He called the publisher. The publisher said, "Oh my God, I can't believe nobody's thought of it." And there we go. I signed the contract with Jack, and a year and a half later, September of 1996, my first book, Chicken Soup for the Woman's Soul, came out and went to #1 on the New York Times bestseller list. Now I'm going to take you back to, since it's okay to tell the woo kind of stuff, which I don't normally tell this part of it.
Tell it all.
In 1990, I'd had a Vedic astrology reading. Now, Vedic astrology is the astrology of East India.
Mm-hmm.
And and it tends to be very good with timing and predictions around timing and things. And the astrologer had said to me, "Marci, you are going to have a best-selling book in September of 1996." And I looked
No
at
way.
1990. I said, "No way. I don't write. I don't like writing." Now, at the time, I was teaching business writing in Fortune 500 companies. That was one of the gigs that I had. One of the jobs that I got was teaching business writing. And I honed my writing skills and all of that. But I didn't think I was going to ever write books. And he said, "No, no, it's here. It's in your chart. September of 1996, you'll have the best-selling book." And that is, in fact, September 15th when that first book came out, 1996. You know?
So over the course of those 6 years, how did that reading kind of like go in and out of your brain or your heart? Did you hold it there? Did you hold space for it? Did you care? Like what?
I forgot about it.
Mm-hmm.
I forgot about it, you know? And here's the thing that I've found. You know, there's this great saying, I don't know who said it, maybe Agrandino, said, "Luck is when preparedness meets opportunity." And I feel like that's what I had. I had prepared myself for this opportunity. I had really followed my my heart's calling, my soul's calling from my work, you know. And I think that's one thing that's critically important, is that we follow what's that voice that, you know, I'm going to be a speaker. That's the inner voice, where, you know, the outer voice would go, "Who does that? Who makes a living doing that? Be a dental hygienist." But I followed that voice, and I worked hard. I prepared. I honed my skill as a writer, because that's what nature brought me. That's what the universe brought me, was this writing opportunity to teach writing. And then I also did those 3 steps: intention, be clear about what I want; attention, I trained for it; and no tension. I relaxed and let go during that meditation retreat, which I've since done a number of meditation retreats. And every great book idea I've gotten has come at a meditation retreat.
Beautiful. One of the things that I want to draw to all of our attention is the fact that you brought this idea to the person who could help you execute it. Like you took action, right?
Mm,
I guess that's the attention part.
yeah,
Um, and I love in your book where you talk about Jack's question, where he said, well, why do I need you to do this?
right.
Like, you've just given me the idea. I can do it myself. And what was your response?
Yeah, that was an interesting thing. I went to meet with him about the book idea, and he did say, he said, well, why do I need you to do it? And I said, well, Jack, you don't. But I have, I've worked, first of all, that's my idea. Secondly, I really am a good writer. Third, I've spent the last 10 years speaking to women's audiences. And fourth, I'm a woman. He said, okay, you got me on that. So it was, there is a part where you have to claim, this is what is for me. And it's not that it's going to necessarily be, he didn't roll over and go, oh, of course it's yours. But when I answered that question the way that I did, he said, okay. And we worked on it together, along with Jennifer Hawthorne, who's a dear friend and was my business partner at the time, and he was partnered with Mark Victor Hansen. So the four of us wrote that book. And I will tell you, I consulted with the astrologer before that book came out, and he said to me, Marcy, you're going to do another Chicken Soup for the Soul book. You could do another one a year later, and it would be on mothers. And I said, oh, come on. There would already be two Chicken Soup for the Soul books out there. Isn't that just too much? He said, no, bring the idea to the publisher. So we did. And a year later, Chicken Soup for the Mother's Soul came out and sold 3 million copies. So, I believe in consultants, whether it's, a Vedic astrologer, who I still consult with Vedic astrologers all the time on timing of things and opportunities. To me, it's like, if you want to sail, you start sailing when the wind is good, when the wind is in your direction. That's how I look at astrology. You start the timing of things when the wind is in your direction. So I think it's a number of things. I think it's using consultants. It's following your inner voice. It's taking action. It's relaxing, letting go, allowing the ideas to come. It's being surrounded by supportive people who are on your side. So all of those things, I think, are the things that we use to create the life that we are here to live.
Continuing to kind of fast forward in your story a bit, what was happening in your life at the time when you were asked to be a part of The Secret?
Well, let me back up just a bit, because I think there's a piece that I want to share that's important around why I wrote Happy for No Reason. So I had, when I was in my 20s, I did what a lot of people do. I set goals for myself, and I figured that once I reach those goals, then I will really be happy. And I set 5 of them. I'll share them with you, David, because I think a lot of people can relate. I wanted to have a successful career helping people. I wanted a wonderful husband or life partner. I wanted fabulous friends, a comfortable home, and the equivalent of Halle Berry's body. Now, I got 4 out of the 5. I don't have Halle Berry's body, but I have a healthy body for which I'm very grateful. And I worked really hard to get all my ducks in a row. And by 1998, I had everything working. And I had a very major turning point moment. It was in June of 1998. I had 3 books in the top 5 on the New York Times bestseller list at the same time. I'd written one book every year in a row, and all 3 were in the top 5 on the New York Times list. I just finished giving a speech to 8,000 people. I had autographed 5,432 books. My client had a massage therapist massaging my hand every 20 minutes or so I could keep on signing. And on one hand, I felt like an author rock star. But I remember after autographing that last book, I went up to my hotel room, which was the penthouse suite that the client had gotten for me. And I was on top of the world. I walked over to these huge windows overlooking Lake Michigan. I was in Chicago, and I took in that view. And I turned around and collapsed onto the bed and burst into tears. And I burst into tears because I realized I had everything on that list that I thought I needed to be happy. And I still felt some of that emptiness in my heart that I'd felt as a kid. And I realized that I could no longer fool myself into thinking that just the next success was going to bring it to me. It was kind of the end of that road. And while I had been meditating, and that had done a whole lot for me, that wasn't the whole picture. And that's why I dove headfirst. At that moment, I decided I am going to figure this thing out. I am going to figure out what it takes to be truly, deeply, unconditionally happy. And so I interviewed all of the researchers I knew on the subject. I interviewed 100 unconditionally happy people, and I started doing what they did, and it worked. I really noticed some very dramatic shifts in my experience of happiness. And I thought, man, this works. I want to teach this to people. And that's when I wrote Happy for No Reason. And Happy for No Reason came out, and was very successful. I feel very grateful for that. But it brings me to your question about the secret.
Well, before we go to the secret, if it's okay, because we're on the topic of happy for no reason,
Sure,
I really
sure.
would love to take just a second to dive into these 7 steps that you have.
Yeah,
There's a foundation, four pillars.
yeah.
Let's see. There's also the roof and the
Uh,
garden.
Proof and
And
garden.
so,
Yeah,
yeah, if you wouldn't mind just briefly walking us through those 7, because they're very
yeah.
powerful.
Delighted to. So I found that there were, as I interviewed all these people, I found that there were about 21 habits. I identified 21 habits that they practiced that helped their happiness level. And actually, research, the most cool thing about the research that I'll share is that we each have what's called a happiness set point, and it's like a thermostat setting where we tend to hover around that thermostat setting unless we do something to change it consciously, to change our thermostat. So, you have a happiness set point, and you might have some great things happen to you. You're happy for a short time, but then you're going to return to your happiness set point. And same with bad things happen. You're going to generally return to your happiness set point. So it's the set point that's the key. And what's the most important thing in changing our set point, according to the research, is our habits. And the biggest difference between happy people and everybody else is that they have different habits. So great, hallelujah. I can just learn the happiness habits and there I go. So there were 21 main happiness habits. I found that they fell into 7 main categories. And I know that it's hard for people to remember 7 of anything. So I created an analogy or a metaphor so you could kind of remember it. And it's, as you referred to, it's called your inner home for happiness. So a home has a foundation. It's got 4 corner pillars. It's got a roof and it's got a garden. And here's how that relates to building your inner home for happiness. The foundation is taking responsibility for your life and your happiness. It's basically not being a victim in life, and you're a victim when you're blaming, shaming, and complaining. But it's being a victor in life, showing up like I have some responsibility here that I can take responsibility for my happiness. Then there's the 4 corner pillars, and the pillars are the pillar of the mind, your thoughts. Do your thoughts rob you of your happiness? Your heart. One of the pillars is the heart. I've never met a happy person who had a closed heart. Do you live with an open heart? Do you have kindness, forgiveness, compassion for yourself as well as for other people? Generosity. Then there's the pillar of the body. Do you have the biochemistry of happiness? Do you have enough of the happy chemicals, the serotonin and oxytocin, endorphins, and that's where I was weak. That was my weakest link. By the way, I suggest that as I go through these, you think to yourself, where am I the weakest? And that's where you want to start. So I'll probably ask you, David, at the end of this, where's your weak link? And then there's the pillar of the soul. That's that sense of feeling connected to the bigger energy of life, prayer, meditation, and that I was strong in. But then there's the purpose. sorry, the roof, which is your purpose in life. Are you living an inspired life? Are you doing what it is you're here on the planet to do? And then finally, there's the garden. Who are you surrounded by? Do you surrounded by lots of weeds, people that drag you down, choke your happiness, or are you surrounded by the roses and gardenias that uplift you? So those are the 7 areas. The foundation is taking responsibility for your life. The mind is your thoughts. Do you have happiness robbing thoughts? The heart, your feelings. The body, your biochemistry. The soul, your connection to all of life. Your roof, the purpose, and the garden. So David, I'm curious. So for me, I was strong in the soul piece. I was strong in the purpose piece. I wasn't as strong in the thoughts piece. My thoughts. I had a lot of happiness robbing thoughts, and I wasn't as strong in the body piece. So what about you?
All of them I could take grounded, but that's part of my personality. I'm like, oh, I need to improve in everything.
Yeah.
But I will say that about 4 years ago, I started feeling like I can't feel love about 4 years ago.
Mm,
And I'm like, wow, I can't feel love. I couldn't feel love from my wife at the time. I couldn't feel like I knew I loved people, but it felt more cognitive. And I recognized one, I had been on a couple of antidepressants for about 15 years, 14
yeah.
years. And I was like, okay, I want to get off of these because I know that they're kind of just deadening everything a bit. And
Right.
even though they helped me through a massive season of life 17 years ago, I was still on them. So I titrated off of those
Mm-hmm.
and I was fully off of those about 3 years ago. And I started feeling everything.
Yes.
And I thought I was going to feel all the good stuff. I started feeling like, the not good stuff too. And, but simultaneously, I was so focused on opening my heart to feel love and to give love. And so I would say, even in the last 2 years, I probably love myself for the first time. Like
Yeah.
I had just such a, a disdain for myself because I wasn't enough, which ties into the head, the thoughts as well.
Yes.
But yeah, so that love area for me has been a great awakening. I love how you say that you've never met a happy person that had a closed heart. And I would even say, as someone who lived with a closed heart, because I was afraid of getting hurt, because I
Yeah.
was afraid of getting judged, because I was judging myself so much,
Yes.
that closed heart then, of course, disconnects you from so many amazing things in life. And you may want to open your heart, but you're too scared, And so I just love that statement. You've never met a happy person that had a closed heart. I know what it feels like to live with a closed heart and an open heart.
Yes.
And boy, it
Night and
feels,
day, huh?
yeah, it's so different. Yeah, it's
It
so different.
is, and sometimes it's that we're just not letting that life force, that beautiful energy of life flow through us because we're stepping on the hose. There's to me there is an abundance of life, of love,
Mhm.
of everything. It's like water going through a hose, but we're putting our own foot on that hose through our closed hearts.
Mhm.
For people that are hanging on, not forgiving somebody, you're putting your own foot on the hose. Just if opening the heart, and there are many practices for doing that. That's the thing. These aren't just concepts. What I believe in is practices. Getting really with each one of those 21 habits that I found, there's a practice that goes with them. So you find where's your weakest link and what's the practice for me to do.
Mhm. Yeah. For me, I took a very aggressive posture of, okay, how do I navigate this because I'm having so much fear, anxiety, insecurity. So I did probably about 25 sessions of somatic neosomatic release therapy to
Great.
really, lay on that table and go into deep meditation and release all of that was in me. I also did a couple of sessions of Bufo, 5 MEODMT,
Yes.
that just, whoa, that was like a soul surgery in a matter of 45 minutes.
Yes.
Um, so you can take a more gentle approach or a more aggressive approach in
Yeah.
any of these areas. Yeah.
And I so appreciate that you sharing your story because what I really, really know is that when we follow what is our own individual path, I think that we are each on the planet with our own curriculum. And when we look outside and go, oh, I should be doing that because so and so's doing that, or I should be doing that. No, if it's calling to you, that's for you. So
Yeah.
to really step off this treadmill of comparison and why is their life look like this, or should I be doing this, and really become our own greatest wisdom guide.
Yeah. Beautiful. We will obviously have the link in the show notes, but I highly recommend, if you have not read Happy for No Reason, definitely pick up that book. So back to you wrote the book Happy for No Reason, and it did at that point, is that when you were invited to be a part of The Secret after that?
No, actually, before Happy for No Reason
It was
came out, I'd
before.
written
Okay.
it. I'd written it, but it hadn't come out yet.
Gotcha.
And I am part of a group called the Transformational Leadership Council that Jack Canfield formed. It's about 100 of the top transformational leaders in the world. And Rhonda Byrne, who's the creator of The Secret, came to that to one of our meetings and interviewed many of the people there. I think 3/4 of the interviews were done, or 2/3 of them were done at that meeting. And I didn't think anything of it. I just, I'd done a gazillion interviews and I just didn't think anything of it. Who knew that this was going to be a something? And I knew she had a different energy. She was onto something. She was definitely coming from this place. She was walking her talk. What it
Hmm.
was, she was teaching about the law of attraction. She was living that for sure.
Hmm.
That was noticeable. But out of the blue, in the fall of 2006, The Secret came out, and now I'm gonna get back to my woo part of the story, if I may. I never
It's
share this.
all woo. It's all
It
woo.
is all woo. Life is woo, but so I don't often share this part. In 2003, when I was writing Happy for No Reason, I had written 7 Chicken Soup for the Soul books, and I was done. I just couldn't write another Chicken Soup for the Soul book. I knew it was time to do something else. And that's when I came up with this idea of Happy for No Reason. But there was this kind of lull in my career after Chicken Soup for the Soul, and I had a consultation with my astrologer, and I said, "Is that it? Am I just a one-hit wonder and it's over?" And he said, "No, you're in a period of life works in periods of rest and activity." He said, "You were in this very dynamic period. You're now in a more inward period where you're reformulating and reworking, and you will come back out into the world." And he said, in the fall of 2006, something will come along that's even bigger than Chicken Soup for the Soul, and it will catapult you back onto the world stage, but even more on your own, not riding the coattails of Jack Canfield and Chicken Soup for the Soul, but in your own name. And I looked at him and I said, "Come on. What on earth could come along and be bigger than Chicken Soup for the Soul?" It was unfathomable because that book series was just huge. And sure enough, September of 2006, The Secret came along and was seen by, I don't know, 500,000,000 people on the planet or something outrageous. And it did, in fact, bring me to traveling all over the world to larger audiences than I'd ever spoken to before, audiences 10,000 people, just really bigger than even the Chicken Soup had brought me to. So I do believe that there is a destiny that we have and that we interact with that destiny. It's not completely and totally predetermined, but there are tendencies and opportunities and openings. And so it is our job to kind of get in the slipstream of what is our destiny and really work with that. And so anyway, The Secret was part of that whole stream for me.
What advice would you give to someone who is aspiring to create some sort of work or effort or platform or message that would have a similar global influence? What encouragement or advice would you give them?
Well, the first thing I would give them is to see if that desire for a global influence is coming from an ego place or it's coming from just a sense of a destiny or a soul place. Because I don't think we're all meant to be on a world stage. And I don't think that that's any better than somebody who's not. It's just if it's what you're here to do. So I'm not saying that was some great thing. That was just what I had a vision of for my life that seemed to be, in alignment with the destiny. So I would really look at first whether you're coming from a soul place or an ego place. And don't be in tune with what your dharma is. There in India, there's this great phrase in Sanskrit, dharma. Dharma means that which upholds life. We come to think of it as our life purpose, but it's really that when you are doing what it is you're here to be doing, you are doing what upholds life. And then the thing to do is align yourself with the best people, the people that will help you the most, who you're drawn to. I wouldn't be where I am if it weren't for Jack Canfield and my relationship with him. But I didn't do that strategically. I was just drawn to learn his self-esteem trainings. So you just take the steps in front of you about what you're drawn to do. And that's how life to me unfolds. It's not that you don't sit on the couch and do nothing, but you follow the soul voice, and you take the baby steps that are in front of you to take. You celebrate the baby steps that you've taken, rather than beat yourself up for the steps that you haven't taken, or the distance you still have to go. You celebrate where it is you are going. And I have a whole methodology now. I don't know if you call it methodology. I have a whole program that I created because I called Your Year of Miracles. And it's because about 12 years ago, I found myself waking up every morning and feeling like, oh my God, my life is just in this magical flow. People are coming to me, opportunities are coming out of the blue. People are coming that are just like, wow, I get to have lunch with so and so today that is just like right the person for me to be spending time with. And it felt like I was in this place that I've come to call the miracle zone, where synchronicities are happening and your life just feels like you're in the flow. And it was more than just happy. It was like, wow, I'm just in the flow. And I found that there was a way to get in that flow. And in the same way that there's habits that put you in the state of being happy for no reason, there are certain habits that put you in the miracle zone. And that's what's grabbed my attention over these last 12 years, is helping people live in that place I call the miracle zone.
I think about my own life. Obviously, as you talk, I'm like, okay, I'm filtering this, through my own experience. And obviously, I have a lot of reflection on my own life, as I hope others who are listening as well. But, when I was 18, in the midst of this calling that I had to, at the time, what I discerned to be Christian ministry as a pastor, I had this deep, deep internal sense that I would make a positive impact on the globe, me personally. And it was just this deep, deep sense that I had. And so when you talk about that as a teenager, I'm like, oh, no, no, no. I know that feeling, at least for me,
Yes.
my own feeling. And so I went through, undergraduate and graduate school and seminary, and started, churches here in Orange County. And I spent 10 years in full-time ministry trying to make it happen. So the intention was there, the attention was there, and there was a hell of a lot of tension as well.
Right.
It was grinding, and man, if I could just help enough people and grow this church big enough, then I'll finally be somebody. And so the way I tell it is, I was trying to fill this void of not enoughness inside
Yes.
of me. And I was like, man, if I could just get a book deal, then I would just be there, and then I would be speaking, whatever. And I burned out. Yeah, I literally hit rock bottom,
Yeah.
17 years ago. Like, I got to a place where I
Yeah.
made some decisions, and I checked myself into a mental hospital for 3 days because I was not able to function, because I had given so much that was in alignment with this intention that I
Yeah.
truly, and now 17 years later, I still believe it. I still have that sense inside of me, but now I'm not grinding. I'm not striving. I'm kind of just going, well, I'm here to serve. And that's what I talk to people about, is to go, well, there's a big difference between performing and serving, performance and service. And that if I'm coming from a place of service, which I know I am, then that intention has the opportunity to kind of unfold organically as it's, supposed to.
And that's the difference between a soul-based intention that you're here to serve versus an ego intention. You're here to prove or to, get approval or whatever to get. Yeah. And, you say that phrase about I'm not enough. And I do this to that feeling of I'm not enough. I found that there are, I think, three major lies that most people live by. And they are, I'm not enough. I don't matter. And I don't have what I need. And I go back to esoteric. I, again, don't usually say this stuff, but in the last few years, maybe 10 years, 12 years, I've been feeling the presence of specifically Mother Mary and Mary Magdalene, a nice Jewish girl that was not on my radar. And they've been sharing messages with me. And one of them is that the three biggest salves that we can embrace these days is unconditionally, I am enough. Unconditionally, I matter. And unconditionally, I have all that I need. And that is really more true than the lies, the fear-based lies that we have lived in, that our society has lived in, and that we've learned from the time we were born, probably. So I think now is the time on the planet for this message of unconditionally I'm enough, unconditionally I matter, and unconditionally I have all that I need. I notice for myself that when I just say those, my whole body relaxes. Yeah. And I tend to move more into that place of flow, of openness, of the miracle zone. It puts me back into that energy of flow, of love. There's the vibration of fear and the vibration of love. And what I think we are all here for is to learn how to live in that vibration of love.
Mm-hmm. You mentioned your program, Your Year of Miracles. Mm-hmm. I want to hear just a little bit more about that to motivate people to take action. And then also your Happy for No Reason certified trainer program, which I'm fascinated by. So if you wouldn't mind just telling us a little bit more about both of those and where people can connect with you about those.
Sure. So I do my work on Happy for No Reason. People a number of years ago asked me, can I teach this? I want to go to be able to do this in businesses or in schools or with kids or, senior centers. I want to teach this. And so I put together a certification program, Happy for No Reason certified trainer program. It takes 3 months. I teach it once a year. And if you are interested in being able to teach this work, you get a hack. I personally train it. It's a live training on Zoom. And it's a wonderful training. People have gone on to teach this in all kinds of ways, use it in their businesses in all kinds of ways. So you can go to happyfornoreason.com and learn about that there. And then the other love of my life is teaching, is leading this program called Your Year of Miracles. It's a global community. We have thousands and thousands of people. There have been over 40,000 people who've been through the program. And it's a year-long program. We focus on how to live a miraculous life in every area of your life. Relationships, health, self-love, success, money. We cover each month a different theme. I co-lead that program with amazing teachers. I call it my Miracles Dream Team. Dr. Sue Morter and Lisa Nichols and Mike Dooley and Lynn Twist. And we also have Lisa Garr working with us in some of the interviews that we do. So it's a beautiful program. You also get supported by the whole community for whatever intentions you have. And you get a miracles group of 4 to 8 people that we call it supercharge each other's intentions. Anyway, it's a beautiful, wonderful program. And you can find out about that at youryearofmiracles.com. It blows my mind the kinds of miracles that people have in their life from just doing it.
I know you said it's a year-long program. Does it have a certain start date and end date, or can you join any time? Or
It does have a certain start. It starts at the beginning of the year, and we are looking into the possibility of opening it up partway through the year so that we can include people who just hear about it later. Yeah, so that's probably going to happen. You can just go to youryearofmiracles.com and we will have that updated there. We also have a thing called a month of money miracles if you just want to focus on that month of money miracles as well.
Marci, thank you so much for sharing your story. It's so inspiring to hear your story. Thank you for sharing your wisdom throughout. And I would just remind you that unconditionally, you are enough. And unconditionally, you matter. And
Thank
unconditionally, you have everything that you need. All the resources are available to you. So that's a reminder to
you.
you as well.
Thank you. I love hearing that reflection, and it's true for all of us. And, David, I want to leave everyone with one idea, if I may, one little thought. And that is people often ask me if it's selfish to want to focus on happiness or living a miraculous life. What about the rest of the world? And my response is it's the least selfish thing that you can do. Because when we shift for the everybody around us shifts. And there's a beautiful Chinese proverb that I love to share. It goes like this. It says, when there is light in the soul, there will be beauty in the person. When there is beauty in the person, there will be harmony in the house. When there is harmony in the house, there will be order in the nation. And when there is order in the nation, there will be peace in the world. And my prayer and my wish for every single one of us is that we know that light in our own souls. And through that, we help contribute light and peace to this planet of ours. So thank you so much for doing what you do to help people experience the light in their own souls and to bring peace on this planet.
Cool. Thank you so much, Marci. Really appreciate it.